And we are back. Welcome to my predictions for Premier League Game Week 5. After an international break full of drama, we are bringing back club football for you today. And not only is the Premier League back this weekend, but European football is back next week as well. So if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, make sure you are subscribed. We will be uploading daily for the next few weeks as we go through the Champions League and Europa League and Europa Conference League predictions, as well as all of my usual Premier League reactions and chats as well. We have just hit 700 subscribers on the channel as well, so thank you very much for all the support you've given this channel since the start of the new season. We've had nearly 100 subscribers in the 5 weeks since the season has started, so that is very good, and thank you for all of your support, and make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss out on all of the content coming up over the next few weeks. And of course, if you haven't done so already, please do drop a like on this video as we move into this week's predictions. Thank you very much, and let's get started. And we kick things off with the Saturday lunchtime game. There is no Friday night football this week as it is still the end of the international break. There are a couple of countries that still do it. I think PSG and Bayern are both playing tonight, which is staggering considering some of their players wouldn't have got back until yesterday evening. But the Premier League starts on Saturday lunchtime, and it is Wolves against Liverpool. And I think this is pretty much a one-sided game. I think Wolves have started on the pitch better than most people expected, but the results still have gone the way that people expected. And Liverpool, despite still not, I would say, defending the absolute best, have put in some very good performances and did actually defend very well against Aston Villa last time out to get their 3-0 win. I'm not going to back them to get the clean sheet, but I am going to back them to get the win. I'm going to go for 3-1 to Liverpool to kick off this weekend's action. On to a whole host of 3 o'clock kickoffs this week. We start off with Aston Villa taking on Crystal Palace. And Aston Villa will be looking to bounce back from that Liverpool game that we have just mentioned. Crystal Palace have played some very good football at the start of this season and have got a striker in Odsonne Edouard who is finally looking like he's starting to show what we all expected from him when he made that initial move from Celtic. However, I think this is possibly a stretch too far for Crystal Palace at this point in the season. Remains to be seen right now, but I think this will be an Aston Villa win, and I'm going to go for 2-0 to Villa. I definitely could see Crystal Palace scoring. Maybe I've just gone for them because I've got Matty Cash in my fantasy football team, but I'm going to go for 2-0 to Villa. Next up, it is Fulham against Luton Town. Now, Fulham have been very inconsistent in terms of their results over the last few weeks, or the start of the season, should I say. But I don't think their performances have been pretty bad. They managed to get, of course, that 2-2 draw against Arsenal, then were essentially robbed of going into half-time at the Etihad with a 1-1 draw because of that Akanji offside, and then they sort of fell apart due to Manchester City's qualities in the second half. Luton Town, on the other hand, are still yet to pick up a point. I think they've had a very rough start to the season in terms of the fixtures they've had to play, and I think this is another one that is not really well suited to them. Fulham, of course, as well, have now had João Paulinho sign a new deal. Whether or not that means they just get more money for him in January, or it actually means he is going to stay at the club long-term, remains to be seen right now. But with all of those things considered, I think it's not going to be too much of a surprise when I say I think Fulham are going to win this one. I just don't see Luton Town scoring either. I'm going to go for 2-0 to Fulham, which will see them move up the table and Luton stay firmly rooted to the bottom. Next up, one of 2 games that I think probably should have been televised this weekend, but it is what it is. We've got Manchester United against Brighton. Now, I probably could have done a whole nother Manchester United reaction video to all the drama surrounding Anthony and Sancho and where that leaves Manchester United in terms of options right now, but it's an absolute mess at the football club at the moment. We obviously lost to Arsenal last time out due to all of those set-piece things. If you missed that video, please go and watch my reaction to that. It went down pretty well in terms of views. And then, of course, you have the fact that we did lose at home to Brighton last season as well. On the flip side, Brighton have had one poor performance against West Ham, and in the other games have been absolutely fantastic. So I have to sit here right now and say that arguably Brighton are favourites for this game, even though the game's at Old Trafford. But I have to let my bias come in a little bit. I'm not going to let it go all the way. I definitely think that we are more than capable of beating Brighton. But the way that the two sides have started this season respectively, I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. It's currently unclear if Amrabat's going to be available. And even if he is, I can't just sit here and say, oh, Amrabat's available, therefore we're going to suddenly be phenomenal in midfield. I don't see it right now. I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw and just hope that it's not going to be another defeat for Manchester United. Next up, it is Tottenham and Sheffield United. Tottenham, who have started this season as if Harry Kane didn't even exist. They are scoring goals for fun. They are leaking one or two as well, but some of their attacking football, in particularly from the likes of James Maddison and Heung-min Son, and of course Udogie, who has been fantastic from the left-back position. They really look like a solid team, and the midfield with Sarr and Bissouma in there look like they've fully rejuvenated themselves under Ange Postecoglou. They come up against a Sheffield United side who have played okay at the start of the season. They picked up a couple of decent results, but I just don't see anything other than a Spurs thrashing in this game, to be honest with you. I'm going to go for 4-0 to Spurs, unless maybe one of their key players picks up an injury in training or at the start of the match. I just think they're going to carry on where they left off against Burnley, and I think it'll be too much for Sheffield United. So yeah, I'm going to go for 4-0. The other 3 o'clock game that I thought should probably be televised but isn't is going to be this West Ham against Manchester City game. West Ham, who have exceeded everyone's expectations at the start of this season. I thought they would do well. I placed them fairly highly in my table predictions, but I wouldn't have said they'd be top 4 after the first 4 games. And Manchester City, of course, as everyone expected, have run away with these first few games and currently sit unbeaten and have won every single game so far. I think this will probably be their toughest test so far for them. It's a really tough away game, West Ham, as we all know. Manchester City will look to control possession, but West Ham are happy to concede possession. They're one of the teams that has the fewest possessions week in, week out. They're very much a side that sits back and looks to counter. Could we see Mohamed Kudus for the first time in a West Ham shirt this weekend? I'd certainly like to see him. And of course, you've got all those threats from James Ward-Prowse on free kicks and corners, which I think could end up being a problem for Manchester City. Do I think all of that is going to be enough to stop Manchester City getting a win? No, I don't. I think it's going to be a tight game. I think it's going to be an entertaining game, which is why it's a shame that it's not going to be televised. But I'm going to go for 2-1 to Manchester City. I think West Ham will score, but I think in the end, Manchester City will just have too much quality, like they do for near enough everyone they come up against. And I'm going to give it as a 2-1 win to City. The final game on Saturday sees Newcastle taking on Brentford in the Saturday Night Football. Again, 2 sides that are probably not quite where they'd want to be, but haven't necessarily played too badly. Newcastle have played well, but not picked up great results. Brentford have scored a lot of goals, but have been leaking goals. So it makes this one a very interesting one. Newcastle, of course, are looking forward to their first Champions League adventure this week as well, so maybe their minds will be put on that game, but I think they'll be using this Brentford game sort of as a stepping stone to prepare them for those Champions League games, and I'm going to go for a Newcastle win. I'm going to go for 3-1. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think it's going to be another very entertaining game, and hopefully we see a good match in that one. That was some terrible wording right there. On to Sunday, the first game sees Bournemouth taking on Chelsea in a game where Chelsea, I mean, dare I say must win this early on in the season for Chelsea if they've got any ambitions of achieving anything this season, whether that's even qualifying for Europe, let alone Champions League. I would imagine their title chances are probably already out the window. They come up against a Bournemouth team that I've been really impressed with at the start of this season. I might have to eat my words once again where I said that Bournemouth were going to get relegated again like I did last season. But since deadline day, obviously there's not been any fixtures since deadline day. I think Bournemouth signed some very good players towards the end of the window, and they've looked good under Iraola, and I think they're more than capable of getting a result against Chelsea this weekend, especially at home, on a Sunday game as well, where the crowd are going to be even more up for it. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. I very, very, very nearly went for a Bournemouth win, but I'm not quite confident enough in Bournemouth, and I'm not quite unconfident enough in Chelsea to go for a Bournemouth win. But we shall see. It wouldn't surprise me one bit to see Bournemouth come out on top in this one. The main event, as they call it, the 4:30 game on Sunday, sees Everton face Arsenal in a game that is, I would say, must get a result for Everton. They've made a shocking start to the season. Arsenal, of course, haven't made the best start to the season in terms of performance, but have made a very good start to the season in terms of results. It's just that slip up against Fulham that has let them down so far. I think they're going to use the momentum off the back of that Manchester United result to really push on now. And I think Everton should be a pretty simple game for them. Like I say, they're in a little bit of disarray at the moment, Everton. Arsenal should have too much quality for them. And I'm going to go for 2-0 to Arsenal in that one. The final game of the weekend is the Monday Night Football, and it is Nottingham Forest against Burnley. Again, sort of to the point I made about Man United, Brighton and West Ham, Man City. With the greatest of respects to Nottingham Forest and Burnley, I'm not really sure this should have been the Monday Night Football when you've got this sort of calibre of game available on Saturday. But I understand why. Obviously, Manchester United, Manchester City, West Ham and Brighton are all going to be involved in European action this week, so you can't just put them games on a Monday night when we're going to be playing Tuesday and Wednesday. So Nottingham Forest and Burnley, it is on the Monday Night Football, and I have to look at the way these two teams have started the season and go, realistically, I think it's going to be a Nottingham Forest win. I don't think Burnley have done anything to suggest they're going to do too much in the Premier League this season. They didn't really heed my advice, not that Vincent Kompany listens to my videos, but I thought Burnley would have to adapt their style of play to the Premier League to start getting results, and they haven't really done that yet. Nottingham Forest have continued to strengthen at the back end of the transfer window. They've managed to let some more players go out on loan and some on a permanent deal. They've streamlined the squad into something that Steve Cooper is really starting to see results from, and I really rate Awoniyi as the striker, and I'll be backing him to get some goals this weekend as well. I'm going to go for 2-1 to Nottingham Forest. I probably could have gone for more, but I still think Burnley, with their style of play, will cause Forest some problems, but I think they're going to leave themselves far too exposed to the counter at times, and I think Nottingham Forest will capitalise. That will be it for today's video. As always, thank you very much for watching. I'll be back with my reaction to the Manchester United-Brighton game tomorrow, and then we'll start looking ahead to a great week of European football. I'll see you then.